Hello, and welcome to this panel session from the Saudi Mobile Show. My name is Peter Dowrington, and I'm the founder of XMplify Consulting, and I'm going to be your moderator for this session. By way of a quick introduction, I'll just say that my main interest is using a combination of data science and behavioral science to try and understand why people do what they do, what they're going to do next, and what an organization ought to do with those insights. Now, I'm joined today by two amazing panelists, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a moment. This session will run for about 45 minutes, and I will try to end at the correct time. We've got a lot to rattle through at the moment, so without further ado, I'm going to first go to Dr. Fatima and ask Dr. Fatima, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
I'll try. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. I'll make it very short. I'm leading now the AI Society. I'm the board member for the society, and I was awarded my PhD in artificial intelligence in 2003, the first lady in the Middle East. I have won 2 international prizes, one from USA and the other one from UK. And I think there is a lot to be done. It was a very long journey for me. And if I'm going to talk about myself, I'm going to spend all the 45 minutes. So I'm going to stop here and give the floor to you again, and Lubna to add more about what we're going to talk about for AI, the future of AI. Thank you.
Thank you. And I wouldn't worry about a long introduction. I can talk to an empty room if it's about myself. But before I do, I'm now going to pass to my good friend and associate, Lubna. Lubna, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, it's funny because I am somebody who will happy talk about anything but myself. So it'll be great, the three of us. Well, I'm Lubna Djani, and I am, a Middle Eastern American woman in technology for a very long time, and I'm fortunate enough to have had a degree in systems analysis and design. So my interest is in the intersection of technology, the arts, sciences, and its impact on humanity, and the experiences we create and what we enable with it. So AI and the things that we will be talking to today are at the heart of that, and I'm delighted to be having this conversation here with the two of you. It's like gratitude. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So now this presentation, this panel is going to talk about the looking to the future of AI. There's been amazing things happening over the last few years. In my own area, I'm very interested in natural language understanding. Perhaps that's a bit of an oxymoron in most cases, but I'm really looking forward to some of the advances that are going out there. So first, before we get into some specifics, I'm going to come back to you, Lubna, and I'm going to ask you, looking to the future, and I'm not talking about the next year or so, but perhaps a little bit further, what excites you about the role of AI in the future? And by the other token, what worries you?
Well, it's one and the same. What excites me is what worries me. It is, AI is and it depends on how we define AI, so we'll use it very loosely in this case. Together with, I go back to stacking technology, together with the advances in the stack of technology from silicon through to service delivery, so from the infrastructure, the hardware, and as small as you can get and as big as you can get. And its effects on, and the advances in that, together with the advances in compute, so its ability to look at cause and effect, and how we extend our own capacity and the decisions we make. And this kind of time has an exponential, it's to the power of, it's not plus anymore. So it's in a fractal pattern, extremely powerful time. So,
yes,
so me, I'm for this, and I'm sorry to go. Yeah, it's finish with this binary shift I believe we can make from being humankind to kind human.
Yes, I think I'm going to come back to that in a later question, but I also, I think one of the things that I'm very aware of is that with all great power comes great responsibility. And you know, your point about the exponential growth in both capability and reach of AI is very well made. We used to talk in computing about Moore's law, about the doubling of processing power and memory every few years. Well, Moore's law is snail's pace compared to what's going on in AI at the moment. But you, Dr. Fatima, what excites you and worries you about the future of AI? You're on mute, Dr. Fatima.
So what excites me is to see more innovation in AI, to see that AI is going to change the world for the best, to see that it is going to support humanity, it is going to help in the medical sector, to see how it is going to help in education, to see how it is going to assist human and serve human to be better human than what they are. And AI is not just a game changer. AI is making new rules for our lives. It is going to reshape the way we live and the way we think in the future. It is going to make us maybe mixed with machine, and machine mixed with human as well. So it is not a question of how AI is going to be in the future. It is a question of how we are going to integrate with AI, and AI is going to integrate with us. And what worries me is that no matter how we think that AI is going to be nice and friendly with us, I think we should put some restriction in how AI is going to proceed and to progress in the future, that will not to give it the chance to take over us, and not to give AI the chance to fight with us. So we need to maintain the rule to make sure that no matter what happens, AI has its own place, and not just to extend without any control or monitoring.
And I think that's a really good point. And I know that some people, when they talk about the A in AI, it's used for different things. So you know, we have assistive AI at the moment, which helps people do the things they can already do. And sometimes they replace people on doing simple tasks. And then we have augmentation, which I think is what both you and Lubna have been talking about how we can extend the range of human capabilities with AI. But I think all of the Frankenstein science fiction Skynet kind of stories come from this idea of some autonomous general AI that decides it's better than humans or finds new solutions. Personally, I think we do have to be careful. I think that there's a misunderstanding of what AI is capable of and what it's not capable of. So let's explore that a little bit further. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Dr. Fatima, about this. So if we take an analogy, and we can say that the untrained AI is a bit like a child. It learns and it grows and it develops its capabilities based upon what we teach it. But I guess there's a question here about, well, what data do we give it? And you know, how should we manage what we teach it? And who evaluates the outcome? And let me give you an example of why that's important. I once worked on training an AI model. I thought that I'd done a really good job with the training data in the lab. The results were really great. And then I took it out into the field and it was worse than random in its performance. It was terrible. And that was because what I thought I'd trained the model to do was actually not what it had learned. It had learned something that was correlated in the lab, but a correlation that didn't exist in the real world. So, as I said, Dr. Fatima, I'm going to come to you first. You know, should we be thinking about who decides what data we feed into AI and its scope of use, and who decides whether the outcome is worth it or not? So Dr. Fatima, to you two first.
Well, I think this is a very hard question, but I think we need to answer it, and we need maybe we need to form a committee for this to decide who is going to feed AI and what AI is supposed to be fed with. Because if AI is going to be fed with all the data in the world, then we cannot compete with AI. And if talking about training AI, I'm sure that you have heard about the GPT-3 and other type of languages and training models that does not require too much effort, for example, hidden Markov modeling or other type of modeling that we used to work with. So even the techniques within AI is going into evolution by itself. And this is not an easy thing. So we need to understand exactly that AI capabilities has been expanding more than we can imagine. 10 years ago, we never thought that AI is going to write an article by itself. And nowadays, we can see that AI has written a book by itself, okay? And this is really scares lots of people. It doesn't scare me because I do understand that there is limitation to everything. However, I believe that with the more advancement that is happening in the technology and the techniques and the algorithm itself, and it is not only just about data, it is about how we can deal with data and how is data going to be intelligent in the future? Is data going to change itself and its shape to fit the purpose of the evolution with AI? There are lots of things that can be thought of when it comes to AI and AI behavior. We talk about human behavior, but when it comes to generative AI behavior, there are things that it is hard for us to estimate or to measure or to understand or maybe to think of. So we need to be ready. We need to put limitation to this expansion, and we need to understand. I'm not saying that we should limit the progress of AI and the evolution, but I'm saying we only need to understand how to deal with this expansion and what has to be done. So if AI is going to deal with unstructured data, with multi-data platforms, with the space, with DNA's data inside us, outside us, it is going to be very hard to control AI because AI is going to have more knowledge probably than us, not only in terms of computation, but probably in terms of fast thinking, faster action, simulating human thoughts and decision in a way that would be hard to estimate what would be the next move from AI.
And that's a very good question. I know that doing my own work in human behavior, that at the moment we're incredibly complex, messy people. It's very difficult to model human behavior. Nonetheless, great strides have been taken in natural language understanding. Lubna, I'm going to explore this with a slightly different dimension because I know that you, like I, are very interested in the exploitation of AI, and it's the same kind of thing. We've talked about the asymmetric nature of AI. The power tends to rest in big organizations who can suck up huge amounts of data, whereas us, the poor person on the street, perhaps doesn't have the same kind of technology. So, and I know you've done some work with some groups on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the evolution of AI, and do we need to put if not curbs, then at least a direction in the way that we take AI forward into the future. And who should that rest with? Should it be the organization? Should it be regulation? Should it be us, the person?
It's the way we take ourselves, isn't it? Thank you. It's it starts with I wanted to say with the smallest, but as you know, as you get smaller and smaller, you're down to the cellular level. So yes, as a society, if we think of ourselves individually as a cell, that it has to start with us as individuals, and then through the rings of life, individual, community, family, community, society, and then before you know it, we hopefully come to the conclusion and the realization that just like the plants have roots and what have you, we are all connected, just like what we come from, and we're all the human race. We have an opportunity now to step back and look at the creations that we've been enabled to do. And again, the dangers in AI and come to life, and many things that Dr. Fatima is concerned about and spoke of so eloquently, become really frightening when you add to it the advances in other technologies, be it genetics, be it exoskeleton, with all the ways that we blend, and we can end up becoming the scenarios, if we use science fiction movies to show us, we end up, there's the Avatar and the Matrix, but I fear then the ultimate, the saddest direction would be the Borg, where we're assimilated into a collective. There is no personality or individuality, which would be terrible, as opposed to a harmony or an orchestra of energies that have come together to create joy and prosperity and expansion of knowledge and to places of wisdom, which I believe we can do, and we have an opportunity right now to do so with the technology. But otherwise, the advances in technology and specifically the things Dr. Fatima referenced will be a danger. But the way to limit it, I believe, would be in the way we think, because right now we're giving it its foundation to the question you asked about a child. When a child is born, it's born to the genetic code of its parents, and then it learns through the data sets and the labels that society, religion, culture, what have you. And we have an opportunity to affect our own collective intelligence and well-being, and seeing the well-being of each other. Otherwise, we would be giving AI the capacity to recognize our flaw, and it would strike to eliminate. It would not be very hard to take over, because we do make a lot of illogical and even emotionally misguided decisions. And we have a phenomenal opportunity to take it for good. And I'm thrilled that people like Dr. Fatima and yourself and many of the people that we see here that are taking us in that direction, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting points that came out there. Firstly, the behavioral one, you're quite right. Even when we think we're being entirely rational and logical, we're actually being emotional. And one of the things I can see is that there's a danger that as we give organizations and the AIs that they're building more data about ourselves, and they develop more of an insight into our behavior, that of course could be used to influence the way that we think. So if you know that faulty logic is in place, you can give somebody a nudge and make them go the other way. Now, thankfully, it's not just logic and emotion. There's quite a lot there. The other thing that I was thinking about with this was that just like a child, not born with an innate sense of ethics and morality. So we have to set what we think is appropriate. or not with AI. And that, I think, is going to be challenging in many cases. But there is something else. We are now, I mean, this is a mobile show. And obviously, we're rapidly entering an age of universal hyperconnectivity. So we're going to be connected all of the time. Our data is going to be flowing up and down these connections all of the time. And as compute power becomes less energy hungry, more intensive, although we may think about what's going on with those big server farms somewhere, it is going to enter into new eras about what do we mean by smart. And let me come to smart then with something else. When you talk to the public about AI, they have this vision of something like they might see on Star Trek. You can just talk in natural language, the computer completely understands what you mean, comes up with a perfect intent and a perfect answer, and can solve almost anything. But as compute power improves, as we actually develop these AI techniques, I wonder what will happen. Well, let me just pass the question firstly to you, Lubna, and then we'll go very quickly to Dr. Fatima on this. Will AI achieve that kind of generalized intelligence in our lifetimes? Will we see something that is able to deal with a complexity that at the moment AI can't? AI is very powerful, but tends to be limited in its scope of application. And what happens when it becomes the smartest being on the planet? What are the opportunities for that? So Lubna, let's go for you first. AI becomes something which mimics generalized intelligence as opposed to very specific intelligence. And how could we use the power of an incredibly smart IQ of 15,000 versus 150 kind of being?
If that happens in our lifetime, our existing current lifetime, so help us God. I think I would hope that if that happens in our lifetime, it has happened after we have changed our fiduciary obligations of enterprises from shareholder value to stakeholder value, where we shift our measurements from how much money can we accumulate to how much well-being can we affect. I don't want to put walls around people. I want to make my environment so inviting that they all want to be here. And Earth is made. Earth is a very inviting creation, and in gratitude we should honor it. And this technology gives us all the capability. This technology plus all the supporting technologies from 5G or nanotechnology, embedded technology, security, what have you, up and down the stack, enable us to fill our honeycombs and raise the waters in the canals in our journey to prosperity for all beings. So this is, yeah.
Okay, thank you. So Dr. Fatima, I'm going to come to you now. Generalized AI in our lifetimes, and what happens when it becomes the smartest thing on the planet?
Well, I think it will happen, maybe within the next 35 years at most, not 50 as has been claimed. And I don't think it is going to be easy for us. I can see robots already around us, serving us in different places with different environments. And even when it comes to the communication level, I believe that they have progressed so far when it comes to speech recognition, speech analytic, with AI assistant that has been developed, generated by big companies like IBM and other Microsoft, Google, other people. I mean, there are tremendous changes that are happening nowadays, and I think we are going to witness general AI soon, sooner than we expect even.
Much.
And with this huge development that is happening with AI, we need to be ready. We need to have a mindset to accept what is going to happen, to accept our communication with machine, to accept our communication with an integration with machines within our environments as well, to share the spaces with them, to share our jobs with them. But what's supposed to be happening from my point of view is that again and again, all these need to be monitored. All these need to be controlled in a way that would make human in the center and not at the edge of AI and AI services. We need to focus more on how to make AI serving human, assisting human, integrating with human, not fighting human, not taking over their jobs and leaving them unable to feed themselves. When it comes to AI and general AI and the future, I think it would be beautiful to have somebody listen to you, communicate with you, understand you without making any mistakes, assisting you in your daily jobs, your email and everything. I believe that probably we will very soon, even before general AI, we are going to have multiple digital twins of us that would exist probably not only in the internet, but with teleportation and all this type of new technologies. It is crossing the time space, and it is crossing the limitation of being human within ourselves. It is going to empower us more. That is the beauty of AI and how it is going to assist human. This is the way I think it should go. And again, who is going to control this? Now, this I mentioned before that there could be a committee, but I'm not sure that that committee is able to control the whole world and the progress with all the development with all the companies and even individuals, the good and the bad, and everybody who is contributing to AI. However, I think there has to be a system for this, a worldwide system that has to place, not control, but also to make it go in the right direction, maybe, rather than controlling it toward what humanity needs and the growth of human and the existence of human and the continuity of humanity rather than anything else.
And I think that that's a very good point. And I think both you and Lubna would definitely reinforce this. The human has to be at the center of the thinking of this. And I like the idea of assistive. I personally think that generalized AI will occur in my lifetime, and I'm the oldest amongst the group here, so I'm still hopeful I'll get to see it. I'm particularly interested, though, in the way that that opens up opportunities. So it wasn't very long ago that we saw an AI that not only beat a grandmaster at Go, a fiendishly difficult game to play, but it did so by coming up with completely new and novel strategies, which nobody had thought of before. And I think as we approach generalized AI, it opens up the opportunity for new exploration, new knowledge, which perhaps unassisted we wouldn't have been able to do. The other thing that happened quite recently, and I'm going to come back to you in a moment, Dr. Fatima, about this, was I don't know if people saw Elon Musk's demonstration of Neuralink. Now, I think Neuralink has got a little way to go, but what an interesting idea that we can have something that allows us to connect immediately with our brain to an external organism, whether that's an AI or simple things like an exoskeleton, as Lubna talked about, perhaps to assist people through that. But I'm going to ask now perhaps a slightly more philosophical question. So coming to you, Dr. Fatima, brace yourself, here it comes. So do you think that there'll ever come a time when we can digitally store somebody's knowledge and experience? So for example, could we capture the knowledge and experience of an Einstein? And do we deserve to be stored like that forever, to make that knowledge and experience available to everybody forever? And would it be everyone, would it then become a human right that everybody says, well, I want to be stored and that should be my right? So let me come back to you, Dr. Fatima. Can you see the time when we can digitally store a person's knowledge and experience, and what might that imply?
I think that is possible. And in 2005, I have participated with a visionary paper related to this. I think the knowledge of the scientists and key people that come to life is very important to be stored. And we should learn from the experiences of others. We should not always start learning from zero. We should continue what has been learned. We should be open to understand that other people have gone through a path of learning and thinking and reading experiences, hundreds and hundreds of years and hundreds of books. And still until now, some of these books are being taught, and some of these books are being thought of. So I think, yes, it is worth storing the knowledge of humanity in somewhere in a big knowledge base, okay, in the space where everybody would like to add something to it. But what it has, again, I mean, having the good and the bad, thinking about what has to be added there to this knowledge is another different question. But yes, it would be interesting to save the word knowledge, the word science, and even the evolution of humanity and how thinking has been done, and the development. We don't have to go through this over and over. I think in the future, students don't need to go through the process of learning for 19 years or 22 years or whatever. They can just connect to the world of knowledge and get whatever they want at any time. And from there, they can just upload the knowledge, use it to learn languages in no time, for example. And it's worth thinking. I mean, people like Einstein, people like, some Arab scientists who made great changes in the thoughts and in technology and in electricity. They deserve to be there. Their experience needs to be learned and to be kept. And we need to upgrade ourselves with this knowledge whenever is needed, to learn from others. And even if we talk about family and how family they are dealing with each other. If you think about this generation, for the time being, they don't like to listen to their parents' opinion because they think that they are a little bit old generation and they would like to change. But if an AI knowledge-based system can assist with this to show them, for example, with some kind of virtuality, what would happen if they go that way, what would happen if they go to the other way, which path they are supposed to choose, how they can make a better decision for their future, for their lives, for their friends, not only understanding about science, but also about behaviors and about who to be with. And I mean, yes, we need that. It's very important. And I think we should start with the scientists, yes, and the philosophers, people in philosophy as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So Lubna, how about you? How do you feel about this? Will there come a time when we can store the entirety of a person's knowledge and experience? And should that be for everyone? Should it become a human right? What are your thoughts on this? Because it does enter some interesting areas, not just of technology, but as say ethics and morality and philosophy.
Yes, thank you. I think it right. Well, if it exists, then then it is for all to access. So I would say yes. Storing someone's knowledge, I think, like Dr. Fatima said, whether it's the books and movies and stories and the things, the way you make people feel can let you live for much, much longer and affect much, much more outcomes. So it's really about cause and effect, and having so much of ourselves extended and recorded, it's and made available to as knowledge is grand. How we take knowledge to wisdom is what we need to where we need to put, and to me wisdom is finding, to me common good well-being and for all. So it all goes back to the taxonomy and how we see things. But if we move, I think, from controlling with our, we do need to put mechanisms, policies, best practices, standards, but also creativity and ability to express. So if we go shift our thinking, and a lot of it has to do with shifting thinking, from control to controlling, to gravitating, just like Earth appeals, you know, it's a gravitational pull rather than a dictated one. The thing that will be challenging, we are beginning, obviously, we're storing a lot of our emotions, even when we do sentiment and much more, and when all these sciences that are applied, like psychology and sociology and everything else that's being used, but would be excellent if we can fortify our individuals so that they can find their own growth patterns. What I think will be challenging is how to capture how we actually reason and the randomness that we exist within, and to predict for that. I think I don't know that we will be able to do that, or it would be fun if we were to do that. We would transcend to another space on the universe we exist in, I think.
Yes, I mean, I'll share a personal opinion here, even though I'm the moderator. I think that AI, and the way that it can capture knowledge like this, is the next evolution of a process that started with writing and then went to printing. So we had this way of capturing knowledge and then sharing it more broadly than the individual. I think this is a natural evolution of that. But just before we go off this subject, I'll just like to ask one very quick question. You know, Einstein was more than the sum of his knowledge and his experience. He also had vision and imagination. Could we replicate that with AI? I mean, will we see the point where, to misquote, AI dreams of electric sheep? So, Lubna, to you, AI and imagination and vision, can you see that happening in our lifetime?
I mean, it is happening. I mean, there's amazing art that's being created. I mean, we've unleashed that capacity, you know. So yes, I think so. But I keep going back to I think if we can integrate that ability with our own ability, so that we can fortify individuals. So moving that power to the edge of the individual, so that you can actually begin to see, to extend your own capacity, not just to put it out there, but so that you can transcend with it. I think it becomes much more powerful and effective. And I hope we go in that direction, because then we can all play the paths we want to take and play the parts and gravitate to the things that we gravitate to, because we all have different gifts.
Thank you. So Dr. Fatma, AI with imagination and vision. What are your thoughts?
I think the sky's the limit, and I believe yes. We can reproduce people. We can reproduce dead people. We can reproduce even newly born people and see how they're gonna be in the future. So it is backward and forward. The possibilities are zillions there of what can be done. And I think it is worth trying. And I believe we're gonna see that happening. For example, we have seen some media people bringing some singers from the past and performing using virtual reality some of their songs. However, this is very limited issue when it comes to AI. It is not an AI. But however, adding AI to what has been already started, in my opinion, I think we're gonna visualize and see some evidence of what maybe in the past happened to uncover things that were not clear for us. Maybe we can see what scientists has done in the past to reach their decisions and to form their theories and what has been done. So I think we can go back and forth in time, uncover and discover things, build and reproduce human in completely different ways. I know this is challenging, but I see it is happening if we want to do it.
It's interesting times. It's obviously going to be the case that as the technology exponentially grows in its capability and its reach, I think culturally and socially we're going to have to evolve as well. I can see that this would be the topic for an entire conference just in its own right, but sadly we're not going to have time to cover that. So just before we go, I'm going to come to each of you, and again, Dr. Fatima, I'm going to start with you. What advice would you give to the audience today? What should they be thinking about now in order to prepare for the future?
Well, just in a simple word, they have to develop themselves further. They have to learn more about AI. They have to understand that it is the coming power to control and to develop the science in different disciplines and the technology and even human being. So never stop learning about AI. It's going to continue for the next 50 years at least. And there is huge opportunity under that will come with AI if we would like to talk about economy, and this is completely, as you said, different topic, and we can discuss it maybe in a different conference. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lubna, over to you. What should the audience be thinking about today to prepare for the future of AI tomorrow?
Asking themselves all the questions they can think of asking. I think they need to think about the A in AI, being autonomous as well. It's when AI becomes autonomous, so autonomous systems and what autonomy we give and what control over the decision making, to what degree they influence our decisions, and at what point do they have our systems, the field of effect of the decisions that our AI is making on our the outcomes that we are going to experience. So the applications that we put forth, the policies that we instate, and then the rewards that we put for ourselves before even we worry about the AI. We have to worry about the incentives. How are we incentivizing us to create? So it's what we're creating today. It's not the AI, it's not the technology that's the problem right now. It's the decisions we are making and how we are empowering it or ourselves. But we have created a technology that rivals us, and that's a fact. And it can take over, and if you put it all together, we might as well be toast. But that's okay. We don't want to go there. So these are the questions. Ask a lot of questions, and it's time to learn. Science and technology are fun. But yeah, and so the economic models we have in place, I think that's probably one of the first priorities, socioeconomic.
Lovely, thank you. Well, I did say I would try to finish on time. We're just a few seconds over. I'm just going to summarize with a couple of thoughts before we go. I think we've heard from two amazing panelists today about their thoughts about AI in the future. One thing I've taken away from that specifically, though, is that we need to put humans at the center of AI. And I believe, as I believe our panelists do, that AI should live in service to us and not the other way around, which if we don't take control is what could happen. We end up serving the AI rather than the other way around. And for a final thought, I'm going to leave you with a misquote from Dr. Fatima when she said, never stop learning about AI. I completely agree. But what I would also add is because the AI is not going to stop learning about you. So if you want to be able to control that future, you need to be informed. You need to take steps to make sure you understand what it can and cannot do now and in the future. But with that thought, I'd just like to thank both of our panelists for an amazing discussion. It's certainly given me a lot to think about. I can feel another article coming on as a result of this. So firstly, Dr. Fatima, thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you so much for taking part in this panel. And Lubna Djani, thank you as well. I always find your insights amazing. And with that, I'd like to just thank all of you who have watched this session today. I hope you found something interesting out of it. I hope you can go back and think about how this is going to affect your life right now and potentially in the future. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you.